Hi, I'm Karen Courtney. I'm from Stonecutter's Kitchen up here in the beautiful Burn and Cliffs of Moher Geopark. And I'm going to welcome you to the virtual Burn Food Fair, first time ever. And we're going to be doing my recipe from the Burn Dinners book, which is the banana and maple upside down toffee cake. And it is on page 296. Very last in the book, I discovered the other day when I was looking. I'm the very last entry in the book. Last was saved for best. Now, the first thing we're going to do is make the sauce. So to make this cake, we need a frying pan, about 28 centimetre frying pan, and it needs to have a metal handle on it. It needs to be able to go into the oven. So I'm just going to light the gas under this, and we want a low-ish heat, medium to low heat. We don't want anything too spectacular. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my butter in. Now, little tip here, I haven't made this cake for a while, and obviously because we were doing this I decided I better practice a little bit. So on making it again, I discovered and decided that probably isn't quite enough sauce on it. The first cake I made absorbed all the sauce that I had made in the pan. So I'm going to double my ingredients for the sauce so that I can have a little bit extra that I can put aside into a jug. I'll show you that now in a minute. And then at the end, we're going to put that over the cake to make it even more beautiful looking. Okay, so I'm going to put in my butter, which is twice what's in the book. Now, you don't have to do that. There's plenty of sauce and it absorbs into the cake, and the cake is beautiful, but if you want that bit extra on top, this would be nice. Now I'm going to put in my brown sugar into that, and then I'm going to put in my maple syrup, like so. So it all just goes into the pan onto a medium to low heat. So we'll stir it around till we get that nice and mixed up. It's going to start to froth and foam, as you can see there. Just going to turn it back down lower again. And we're going to cook this for about 3 minutes, maybe. And what happens is it foams up like this. Hope you can see that all right. So it's all nice and bubbly. You don't have to stir it all the time, but I wouldn't go too far away from it at the same time. What we can do while that's bubbling there is we can slice our bananas. You might give me the sharp knife, love, please. My beautiful assistant over here beside me is Miles, my husband. Long-suffering husband. And we're going to put in 3 bananas into the pan when the sauce is done. Okay, 3 bananas. I'm just going to check this again. Now, you will ask yourself, how do you know when this is ready? And the best way you can tell, there's 2 things you can do. One, the colour is going to change. So I'm not sure if the camera's picking that up, but it's starting to get darker. And we're about 1.5 minutes in. And you'll also get to a point where when you pull the spoon across, that the sauce doesn't close immediately. I think you need another minute or so on that. So I'll go back to my bananas. We're going to slice them long ways, like so. So if you have a look at the picture of the cake, you'll see that the bananas that we're putting in the bottom of the pan are going to end up on the top of the cake. So it's nice to have them looking reasonably nice because it's part of the presentation of the cake. Okay. And I'm doing sauce. Okay, so we're definitely getting there. The colour is getting darker all the time. So that pale foam has kind of disappeared. The bubbles are getting bigger. You can see that. And if we draw our spoon across, it's not closing. The gap isn't closing quite as fast. So I would say that's almost ready. Again, maybe about 30 seconds in. Working with sugar, I'm not hugely experienced with it, and there's a lot of science involved in it. This is fairly simple and foolproof because you've got your maple syrup in, and that balances it, stops it cracking, and it stops it doing the funny man things that sugar can do when you're cooking sugar. Okay, so I think we're good to go on that. And you see that it's much slower to close, so that's thickened. So we're going to turn off our gas under that. We're going to let the bubbles settle down a little bit on that. Take it off the heat even. Probably bring it a little bit nearer to you so you can see a bit better what I was talking about. Okay, what you don't want to do is get any of that on your hands, because sugar, the temperature of boiling sugar, I think, is higher than boiling water even, and it sticks to you, so it will give you a nasty burn, so you need to be careful of that. Now, and to sprinkle, if the bubbles are died down, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of lemon juice on this, which just gives it a little bit of tartness. Just like so. Okay. Good to go. Now we're going to lay our bananas. Oh, that's very, thank you. See, he's not just a pretty face. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of that sauce off, and we're going to put it in the jug for later on, so we can add it on to our cake when we're serving. Okay. And spread the remainder around the bottom of the pan. And this, by the way, you can use, if you did nothing else, if you weren't even baking the cake, you can make that sauce, and that is absolutely wonderful on top of ice cream and all sorts of things. Nice things. Okay. So we're going to lay our bananas in. Now they're generally a little bit too long, so we're going to do this. We're going to break off the ends. You want to make it into a nice sort of fan shape, like so. Of course, some of them are straight bananas. Must be EU bananas. Cool. And keep the if they are bent, keep them bending in the same direction. So get a nice swirl. You're going to end up with one or two of them where the broken end is on the outside, just by virtue of the fact that they are bent. The picture in the book hasn't got those little bits, but in here but I think that they fill the gap nicely, make sure every portion gets some bananas, and they actually look nice, and I hate waste. Anyways, not gonna waste it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the cake mixture. So for the cake mixture you need your, I shouldn't be having to check this, but 3.5 ounces of softened butter. And we're going to put that into the bowl. So just give it a little bit of a helping hand and cut it up. Like so. And it's nice to have it room temperature as best you can, because that's going to make it mix much better. And then we have our brown sugar that goes in there, and we're going to cream that up. So we want to mix them together. This can take a couple of minutes just to get it to come together. So I would start the machine slow, and then I'd increase the volume, increase the revs. Okay, and then about halfway through I'd stop it, and I'll go around and I'll get my mixture from the sides of the bowl. Get it back into the middle so that it can mix properly. Sometimes it goes and it sticks to the sides of the bowl, so you have to unstick it. Okay. So because it's brown sugar, we're not going to look for, like, we're not making a sponge here, so we don't need to look for that whiteness that you get when you cream butter and sugar together. Normally for the start of a sponge, it doesn't need to be as light as that. It's not necessary. So I'm going to leave it at that and give you a little vision of it. So that's how it looks at that stage. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do, we need to mash our bananas. In the recipe it states that you should have the machine running. I think don't worry too much about that, it can go in as is. So it's all going to come together anyway. Very simple. Okay. My gorgeous assistant was here, he might take those out of the way. Now I'm going to put the maple syrup in, and the maple syrup was 2 fluid ounces. So both of those are going to go in there. And then we're going to give it another mix together. Again, start slow and then just wind up the speed, otherwise it tends to fly everywhere, which you don't really want. Now I'll give you a little look as well at, now it doesn't look very nice at this stage, okay? It almost looks like the cake mixture has cracked, but that's because you've got your fats in there and you've got your liquids in there, but you haven't got anything to bind it together. This will be the next step. So we're going to put in a small bit of the egg. Oh, actually I need to weigh out the flour. I was going to show you this because it's a handy trick. You probably know it already. But if you have one of these clever weighing scales that will zero when you have stuff on top of it. So put your bowl and your sieve there. And my weights come up to 0 because I've pressed the tare button, and That way you can weigh out your flour without too much hassle. I'm going to go up to the 170, and again, don't worry too much if it's over by a little bit. Once you're not over by a substantial amount, and then just sieve it through into the bowl, like so. Okay, so we're going to add this bit by bit, so probably about 3 stages. So we do about 1/3 of the flour in here, followed by about 1/3 of the egg, and that was 3 eggs that my beautiful assistant beat up for me earlier on. That mix. Again, one trick in baking, or one piece of information that I learned as I went along, is that once you wet your raising agent, in other words, if it's self-raising flour, once that goes into the wet mixture, or if it was bread soda or whatever it might be, once you wet the raising agent, it starts working. So if you're working on a cake that's important that it rises, then it's very important to wet the flour at the last stage and get it straight into the oven, because it's starting to do its thing, its chemical reaction. Again, stop it, and I'm finished putting in those things, but I'm also going to do a little quick round with the spatula to make sure that the stuff is in from the edges. You can do this mixture with a hand beater, a handheld beater, that'll work as well. You need one of these machines. You could probably do it by hand too if you had lots of energy. Okay. Quick around the edge, and get the last of that flour in. One last mix. I'll show you the cake mixture. So that is what we've ended up with. So you can see the difference from earlier on when I showed you, when it all looked like it was separating. It's all nice dropping consistency batter. Drop, there we go. It doesn't look like a whole lot, but it is going to rise and it is going to fill it out. So you'll see that when we take it out of the oven. So don't panic if it doesn't look like it's going to be enough. It will be. Unless you've gone for a substantially bigger pan, of course, in which case you might need to up your quantities a little bit. And then we're going to gently ease this out to the sides of the pan. And then the last little trick, it's going to make a lot of noise, so you just give it a couple of quick bangs, and that will make sure that if there's any air bubbles trapped, or it'll just make it settle down nicely. And then we are going to put it into a preheated oven, about 180. I would always swivel the cake probably at least once, if not twice, through the cooking. So what I'm going to do is set up my timer to do probably about 10 minutes, maybe 8 minutes, depending on your oven. And I'm going to check it, and I'm going to turn it around so that it cooks nice and evenly, so you're not getting, most ovens have a hot patch. You'll know yourself in your oven. Okay, so we just have to wait for it to cook. So now we're going to check to see how it's doing in the oven, and my beautiful assistant here will help me. So I'm going to have a look. So it's nicely browned on top, and you can see it's bouncing back there. There's no sort of liquidness or movement, and the poker is coming out clean, so that means it's done. So you can whip it up here. Where did the Now, it normally, can you tilt that towards Paul? It normally, you can see it started to pull away from the edge. Okay, you can leave this for a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, to cool down a little bit before you turn it out, but we're going to turn it out for you right now. So to do it, we put the plate on the top, and then we flip the whole lot over. We pray that it comes out right. And voila! And as I said to you earlier, if you wish to, you don't have to, but if you wish to, you can make some extra sauce in the pan like we did earlier on, and you can use that to pour over the cake. Now this actually, that's gone very thick. We might have been better to heat it up again before we poured it on. But, that just adds a little extra deliciousness to the cake. And this cake is really good if it's served warm. And I would just put cream or ice cream with it. But it's also pretty good cold, as I discovered yesterday when my friend came over to visit after our walk, and we sat out in the sun and we had a slice of cake and a cup of tea, and that was actually delicious. So now I hope that all makes sense to you all, and hopefully it has ended up looking something like the picture in the book. And that's my banana and maple upside down cake. And best of luck. Let me know how you get on.